Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for making some time in your busy schedules today. I hope that bunking off for a couple of hours will be worth it on this particularly special occasion, so make the most of the moment. As you know, the Lighthouse, since its inception about 5 years ago, has always and only ever been focused on one thing: human beings. Our never-ending interest in human capital, what effect you can have on the world, is what's most important to us. Whether that be as new world talent defining success in the professional world, or through thought leadership in ensuring the world progresses to a better place. At the Lighthouse, we believe that we are all able, we are all responsible, because we truly have it within ourselves. Through our curiosity in the human heart and mind, our growing qualifications in psychotherapy, mediation, our ongoing work with now thousands of you within the industry, we spend our waking hours helping you to wonder what your professional and your personal future could look like, and guiding our clients in making the best and most dynamic hires at leadership level. As many of you also know, within our first year of business, it was clear to us that we wanted to change the reputation of headhunters. We had to go further, do more, provide more, not just to you personally, but professionally too, as you as a whole person. Your well-being, your strength, your belief in your ability to achieve was important to us. And it's because of this that TLC Bespoke was born, and today we offer all of our clients and our candidates the opportunity to meet and work with many of our affiliated professors and experts, some of whom are here today. Doctors, stylists, lawyers, psychologists, fitness instructors, coaches, media trainers, financial advisors, and if you're going through a particularly exciting or tough patch, maybe all of them at the same time. We believe to be happy in life, to thrive in life, not only need to be fulfilled in your work, but in your heart and your body and your mind. And so it's with great gratitude that when my wonderful business partner in Advertising Week Europe, Matt Schechner, asked if we'd like to host and welcome Arianna as she infiltrates every corner of the UK industry this week, we felt it was the perfect fit. Arianna is currently omnipresent in our worlds, in our working lives, on our bookshelves, the news wires, and her life story is well told and well documented, and indeed her achievements, of which there are so many, are celebrated and acknowledged throughout the world. From life in Greece, the UK, the US, to relationships, to loss, to parenthood, to the launch of the Huffington Post, Politics and Congress, successful sale and partnerships with Tim, AOL, and now the progressive writing and introduction of the notion of the third metric. It's very hard to ignore her, and why on earth would anybody want to? Having undertaken a respectful amount of research into Arianna before today, I watched a number of interviews with her, both on her own and with her daughters, and what struck me were three clear things. Not one of them is ever the same. This lady lives in and takes the moment, the here and now. No PR machine can curb her desire to state what she feels in her heart. How refreshing. She epitomises authenticity. She tells the truth no matter how painful or personal or evangelical. She is willing to reveal her true self to us. How brave. And she refuses to hide her passion and belief in making us understand what is it we're doing to ourselves professionally and the need to urgently rethink the sustainability of ourselves. So today I did not want to introduce Arianna for all her accolades and prizes, but instead I wanted to introduce her girl to girl, mother to mother, boss to boss, friend to friend, human being to human being, as she tells us a little more about her take on redefining success, her philosophy for life, and our need to discover and value the third metric in order to truly thrive. And for goodness sake, put your phones away. Otherwise, I know all too well she'll rightfully demand our full attention. Arianna.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for this beautiful introduction. Can you all hear me? Yes. Because you have to deal with my accent too. And thank you for making it personal and intimate. I love that. And thank you for the beautiful gift you gave me, together with a beautiful pouch that I'm going to cherish, to write inspirations and ideas. I'm planning to write a lot from you here today during our questions and discussion. So I'm delighted to be speaking to you and to be listening to you, I hope, during our discussion time. Because I really believe that we are going through an amazing moment in our history when a lot of trends are converging. And you all work with trends, analyzing trends, seeing what is happening in the world. And as these trends are converging, we are really at a turning point in terms of how we live our lives, how we run our companies, and how we solve our problems. Greek philosophers used to say that there are three questions we have to answer. The first is, what do we need to know? The second is, how do we govern the city? And the third is, what is a good life? And for some reason, in the last 200 years, we stopped asking the last question. And instead, we shrunk the definition of a good life down to success. And we shrunk success down to two metrics of money and power. And this is like trying to sit on a two-legged stool. You know, sooner or later you fall off because you are missing out on an enormous part of life. I came to this realization the hard way by collapsing 7 years ago from exhaustion, burnout, and sleep deprivation. Thank you so much for getting everybody a book, and now you can read the opening chapter is about that. And as I came to, after I hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone, got 4 stitches on my right eye, and as I came to in a pool of blood, I started asking these questions like, is this success? Because really, by conventional definitions of success, I was successful, but by any sane definition of success, if you come to in your own pool of blood, you're not successful. So that's what started me reading a lot about science and philosophy, and modern science truly validates ancient wisdom about the need for renewal in our lives, the need for sleep. We now have major scientific findings about how it's truly a miracle drug that strengthens our immune system, improves our mental clarity, and makes it easier for us to bring joy into our lives. So all these things that we've dismissed in modern life as not essential, not for alpha males and therefore alpha females, are now coming back as absolutely essential, not just for our well-being that you talked about, Kathleen, but for our wisdom and for our creativity. I mean, in your industries, creativity is valued more than anything, and yet the way we run our companies and run our lives is the surest way to kill creativity and innovation. So the third metric, the third leg of the stool that I write about in Thrive, consists of these 4 pillars. First of all, well-being and health. You know, honestly, just look around at your own lives, or if you're lucky, your friends and colleagues' lives, and see what a price millions of people have paid in terms of their health and well-being in the relentless pursuit of what they consider success. In fact, the statistics are stunning. You know, 3/4 of healthcare costs are because of preventable chronic stress-related diseases. 1 in 6 people, 1 in 6 in the UK, suffers from some form of depression or anxiety. That is truly a stunning number, because we're not talking about the people who have real medical depression and mental health issues. We are talking about people who are suffering because of that, because of the way we're living our lives. And we see the impact it's having on our children from a younger and younger age, the addiction to technology, and the need to actually change the way we're living our lives and run our company. So well-being and health, number 1 pillar of this third metric. The second is wisdom. I quote Bill Clinton in the book, who said that the most important mistakes I made in my life I made when I was tired. He did not specify what mistakes. But we all can look back in our lives and say the same thing. I can say the same thing. That's why when people ask me, yes, but if you had taken your own advice earlier on, would you have achieved the things you did? I say categorically, yes, and more, and I would have done it with less stress, less anxiety, less worry, and more joy, which is very important to me. And so as you look around, you see all the leaders who are running our lives, and how many of them are actually, despite the fact that they are smart with high IQs and great degrees, are making terrible decisions. It's not really just about smarts, it's about wisdom. And we are all sort of swimming in data, but drowning for wisdom. Because data and information is a very, very different realm in terms of decision making than wisdom. And one of the enemies of wisdom is multitasking, which is really at the heart of modern life. Somehow we all think that if we multitask, we are more productive. I really, really want you to look at the scientific data in the book. I have 45 pages of scientific endnotes. And multitasking is task switching. It doesn't exist, and it's the most stressful thing you can do. And it robs you of the capacity to experience the third pillar of the third metric, which is wonder. You know, life is filled with wonder, and yet we miss it because we're so busy. You know, just look at the emails we send each other. They are full of this language of drowning. You know, I will get back to you when I come up for air, is an expression used a lot in the States. I'm swamped, overwhelmed. I have stopped myself now from using these words. And we say that because we don't trust ourselves to say something really simple, which is no. Did you know no is a complete sentence? So we all kind of have to like go on about how crazy we are. Crazy is another word. I'm crazy at the moment. And if you walk down the streets of New York, where I live, hardly anybody just walks. You know, people walk and they're on their phone, or worse, walk and text, and then this is taken as some kind of badge of honor and importance. You know, you are too important to just walk. Get it? You know, you have to be also doing something because they're just so busy. And because, therefore, people who are just walking need to just get out of the way because they are clearly not as important. And when I started just walking, I just noticed things. Like a building near my apartment that has this amazing ornamentation at the top. And I said to a friend of mine, this is beautiful. When did it go up? And she said, 1890. So the book is dedicated to my mother, and she used to say all the time, don't miss the moment. Because, you know, that's all we have for sure. You know, life is very fragile. And Kathleen mentioned, I write a lot in the book about my personal crisis, you know, my daughter getting involved in drugs over 2 years ago, dealing with that as a mother. She's been sober now for over 2 years. But I write after she wrote about it first because she wanted to help other young women, about how when we actually do all the things that involve nurturing ourselves and taking care of these different dimensions of the third metric, then when a real crisis happens, we are able to deal with it in a much more effective way because we are not running on empty. And there will be crises, personal, there will be emergencies at work, but we cannot turn our life into a constant 24/7 emergency. In fact, my screensaver is a picture of gazelles, because gazelles are a little bit my role model. You know, they run really hard if they are pursued by a lion or a leopard, but then they graze, and they have looked at their bodies, and there is no stress anymore. Just look at our lives. We are in a perpetual fight or flight mode, because even when we are not dealing with something that demands our full 100% attention and energy, our minds are preoccupied either worrying about the future or judging us about the past. And so it's really the need to not just nurture our bodies, but learn to quieten our minds that is key. And related to that is the fourth and final dimension of the third metric, which is giving. Because when life is purely narcissistic, again, we are missing an essential quality of thriving, which is giving back. So, putting all that together, and I want to wrap up quickly so we can move into our conversation and the questions and points from you, which I'm going to write all down in my new little book. So putting all that together, if we are lucky, we have 30,000 days to play the game of life, because as the Onion headline put it, The Onion is a humorous American magazine, death rate holds steady at 100%. So if we're lucky, we have these 30,000 days. How we play the game of life depends entirely on what we value. If we only value the first two metrics, we're never going to have enough. We are always going to be putting our real life on hold while we are getting to this objective or finish this project, and then we'll put it on hold until we get the next thing done. And then we die, as the Onion reminds us. So if you've been to a memorial recently, you may have noticed that eulogies have absolutely nothing to do with our resumes or our LinkedIn profiles. Have you ever heard anybody say, you know, George was amazing. He increased market share. You know, eulogies are always about the other things. How we made people feel, what made us laugh, small kindnesses, lifelong passions. So why is it that we spend so much of our life shrinking who we are and what we do entirely down to how we are defined by our jobs? I think our jobs are important, and I happen to love my job, but I'm not my job. And nobody here is their job, no matter how fabulous your job may be. I was recently doing an interview with Oprah, and the question she asks everybody at the end is, what do you know for sure? And I said, well, what I know for sure is however magnificent your job is, Oprah, or however great my job is, who we are in our essence is much more magnificent. Because every religion, every philosophy, and most major scientists have talked about the same thing, the human essence that is really about strength, wisdom, and peace. And we all have that center in us. Most of the time we don't live there. But if we can learn to return to it again and again, this is a place from which we can live our lives with more creativity, more productivity, more gratitude, and yes, more joy. Thank you so much.
Arianna, thank you so much for just being you and being so honest, and I really hope the next 40 minutes or so we can just try and learn as much as we can from the fact you're just so open with us. It's really valuable to us, and I think at the Lighthouse it's really important for us to get to the real bottom and the heart and soul of someone when we meet them. And we normally start with, they have a Saturday job, but I'm going to start somewhere else with you, if that's all right. When you had your cheekbone moment in 2007, when you look back on it now, do you think you already knew, or there was already signs that you were running too fast or running on empty? Were you already secretly aware?
Well, here is really what is so interesting, which is that I was unconscious of it. I've thought a lot about it. I think it's a great question, because if you think of how conscious we are of the precise state of our smartphone, like you get alerts, right? 20% of battery remaining, 17% of battery remaining. By about 13%, we get anxious and we begin to look around for a recharging shrine. I actually carry 3 portable ones with me. But when I collapsed, I must have been below 0% battery remaining, and I wasn't even aware of it. And I have learned so much from my book tour. We launched the book in San Francisco at the San Francisco Symphony Hall with a conversation like we're having with Sheryl Sandberg. And because we wanted to make it clear that leaning in is not opposed to thriving. That what I'm saying is that when you lean back, you're going to be better at leaning in. If you never lean back, you're going to fall over like I did. And in fact, For those of you who speak French, there is a great French expression about that, which is reculer pour mieux sauter, which literally means lean back in order to jump higher. And that's what cats do. I don't know if you have a cat. Have you seen how when they're going to jump, they first lean back, which is all about renewal. So that's really what was missing in my life, and that's what I think is missing in most of our lives. And there was one young woman in San Francisco who said to us, I actually do not remember the last time I was not tired. So being tired for many of us became like the new normal. And we are living under this truly huge collective delusion that that's the only way to succeed. I mean, I can't tell you how many young women I have who come up to me and say, okay, I understand, so I'll just burn out, succeed, and then I can thrive. I say, no. If you practice these things now, you are going to succeed more. That's like the big paradox, because they're performance enhancement tools. And you know who understands this ahead of business people and the rest of us is sports people. Athletes have now integrated, most of them, the ones who are winning, sleep, meditation, naps, yoga into their coaching, because it makes them better on the field and in the court. Just one more thing here. I was watching an interview that Charlie Rose did with Andy Murray. And Andy Murray was talking, after he did a lot of mindfulness training, after, remember, he used to explode on the court, etc. He talked about how when he's fully recharged and centered, he said, the ball is coming at me in slow motion. I don't know how many of you play tennis, but it's a great metaphor for life. Because when we are burnt out, it's as though everything is coming at us in a way that makes us breathless. When things come at us in slow motion, we can deal with anything.
What's interesting, though, is technology in some ways has freed us, but equally it's made us prisoners to some degree. And I think what we often see when we're interviewing individuals and when we're being asked by clients for certain types of people, they want fast, nimble, dynamic. All of these things are often in the job description. But I guess equally, and lots of us in the room today are leaders in our businesses, it's surely our responsibility too to lead from the top and to show there is a different way of working. You can be as efficient, but you talk about being busy, that seems to be a badge of honour that we've all decided we want to wear. So how do we begin to change that?
I think at many different levels. I think really we begin where we find ourselves. Whether we are the CEO of the company or an intern, we got to begin where we are. And changes in companies, I have a lot of information in the book about companies that are changing, and they're actually going to be the winners in the recruitment and retention wars, because they're going to provide the environments where people will want to work as the world is shifting. And I have found that in some companies, the changes have come from the top, and in other companies, the changes have come from a leader anywhere in the company. A great example is General Mills, a huge multi-billion-dollar company in middle America, not New York or Silicon Valley. And the Assistant General Counsel, Janice Marturano, introduced to the company mindfulness, meditation, yoga, convinced everybody to incorporate them. It's been adopted by everybody. So you go there, and in the middle of the day, you see execs coming out of a yoga class, and you see the whole culture has changed. Or, as in the case of Aetna, the third largest health insurance company, it started at the top with Mark Bertolini, the CEO, having his own personal wake-up call. He had a skiing accident and broke his neck, and he spent a year hooked on narcotics, barely able to function. And then he basically found what he calls his cocktail, yoga, meditation, and acupuncture. And there was of such incredible value to him that he made them available to his 49,000 employees. And then he brought Duke University in to study the results to the bottom line. And they found a 7% reduction in healthcare costs and a 69-minute a day improvement in productivity. And I saw him the other day. We had a conference in New York, a Thrive conference, and he was speaking, and he said, these are the numbers I have in the book. And he said, we've done a new study a year later, and the numbers are even better. So basically, every year that these practices are in the company, they have a deeper and deeper impact on the bottom line.
Now, having come in my previous life from the agency world, the reality is also that often you're pitching across weekends or you're working till 10, 11 at night, and sometimes at the moment that's demanded of you. And I know that you've just started a partnership with 4 different agencies, I know Kara's one of them, to begin to bring some of the learning from this book into the real world, so a practical level. How are you going to even begin to do that? Because if people are pitching till midnight, how are we going to begin to change that?
So I think, well, yes, we're doing this partnership, and Carla Buzassi, our editor-in-chief, is here. And where are you? Here she is, yes. And she has been organizing this great all-day long events for different agencies.
Kara, MEC, Mindshare, and MGOMD.
Yes. And basically they have included conversations like I spoke at Kara yesterday, and I'm speaking at MEC tomorrow, which are what I'm saying now, but more practical, you know, specific steps that people can take. Also yoga classes. Having like ways that this can be incorporated on a daily basis in the way the company functions. The key here is to, instead of looking at how much time we have, like pitching at midnight or whatever, is how much energy we have. Because the quality of our energy determines how good we are at our job. Like the only reason we work around weekends or overnight consistently, I'm not saying this won't happen occasionally. The problem we're dealing with is this being the consistent way of our working.
It's become more so.
Yes,
yeah.
Instead of the exceptional thing, which of course is always going to be happening in life. The reason we do that is because we are not as connected with our own creativity, innovation, etc. You know, if you're burnt out, it might take you weeks to come up with a good idea. Some of the best ideas people have had, they didn't have them in rooms with PowerPoint presentations.
In the bath for me, Arianna.
Yes, in the bath with you, in the bath with Archimedes, the scientist who said, give me, you know, not together, I don't think you're
That's
together.
only a rumor.
You're a few centuries apart, and we're not talking about reincarnation at the moment. But Archimedes, you know, came up with this great idea about displacement of liquids, etc., in the bath. And he was so excited that he ran out of the bath naked, shouting "Eureka," which would have been a great tweetable moment. You know, Newton came up with the law of gravity in a contemplative mood. It's great reading the story of kind of how he was sitting in his garden in a very contemplative mood, and the apple fell, and he saw how it was falling perpendicularly, and it led to what became the law of gravity. And we have endless examples like that, including Steve Jobs, who famously said that his best ideas came after Zen meditation. And yet we are structuring our businesses to be fueled by stress, burnout, and all the things that kill creativity. And that's going to become increasingly important, because as more and more technologies take over many functions of our jobs, what's going to be left, what will matter more than anything, is creativity and innovation. And increasingly, as change is accelerating, every company needs to be in a perpetual disruption mode. I mean, at the Huffington Post, we constantly say we need to be disrupting ourselves, or we're going to be disrupted by the newcomers. And I moderated a panel at the the Microsoft CEO Summit last month, where we had 3 CEOs, John Donahue, the CEO of eBay, the CEO of Chobani Yogurt. He disrupted the yogurt business. You know, everybody thought yogurt was done, we knew what we were doing, and he came in and completely disrupted that business. And now he is where John Donahue, not yet quite, but in the problem area of John Donahue, which is how do you keep disrupting a company that's huge now like eBay? Because they all know if you don't keep doing that, then you are no longer going to be able to be at the forefront. And the third CEO was from Yelp, the restaurant review startup that's become so successful. So in every area of business, fostering creativity and innovation become paramount. You cannot foster them separately from a culture that fosters well-being.
Arianna, with the burnout side of things, you talk in the book a lot about the women's side of that. We're often asked about that because our company is led by women, and we can get distracted at times from that. But you talk about the increase in heart attacks, talk about cortisol and the effect that can have, etc. Looking at that, the women's side of their life is very important to you with your daughters. You talk very affectionately about your mother and indeed her inspiration to you, but also the death of your mother and those kinds of things. When we look at women in sort of board level positions and this, it seems to be that people talk about multitasking, and already you've said that's one of the things that's an issue. So do you see a difference in the way that women manage burnout or sustainability? Are the things that particularly we should be looking for?
Yes, women, again, it's the data that shows that women internalize stress differently. We internalize stress worse than men, and women in stressful jobs, which I'm sure is everybody in this room, have a 40% greater risk of heart disease and a 60% greater risk of diabetes. So what I am saying in the book is that we need a third women's revolution. The first one gave us the vote. The second one gave us access to all jobs and the top of every profession. But the third one is the one that we need right now in order also to complete the second, which is women saying we don't just want to be at the top of the world, running companies, running agencies, running governments. We want to change the world. Because the way the world is designed at the moment is not working. It's not working for women. It's not working for men who are going to be very grateful to us when we change it. And it is certainly not working for polar bears. So, there are many men, there are some amazing men I quote in the book who are at the forefront of this change. But there are also some incredible women who are role models of how you do it differently. One of my favorite is Padma Sri Warrior. She's the Chief Technology Officer of Cisco, and I picked her as an example in the book because she's an engineer, and she oversees tens of thousands of engineers in a big global company. And she was at our conference, and she said, I sleep for 8 hours a day, I meditate, I write haikus, I paint, and every Saturday I do a digital detox. And I think to myself, if she can do a digital detox, I can do a digital detox. And she talks about how much more effective this makes her, and how much of a better leader, better listener, which is a great quality of leadership, and better able to listen to her intuition. I love hearing engineers talk about intuition. One other thing about women, the other thing that is harder for us is to silence that voice of self-doubt that we all have, that is incredibly draining.
Is that the same thing as your obnoxious
yes,
roommate?
Yes, exactly.
Is that sort of the same thing?
That's what I call the obnoxious roommate living in my head.
From a psychology point of view, we'd call that critical parent. Is that sort of the same thing?
Well, except it's mine is incredibly sarcastic. I don't know about yours, but mine is like so good at, and that voice really knows how to put us down like nobody else. So learning to silence that voice is just absolutely key, because otherwise it's just one of the most exhausting things that can happen to us.
Sustainability seems to come up a lot in the book, and I'm just thinking for you, have there been times with your new way of living that you've started to feel yourself slip back? How have you managed to keep focus on your sustainability in that way?
Great question. I mean, I have to say right away that I'm a work in progress. I'm not sitting here saying I worked it all out. But here's what I did. I prioritized certain things. In the book, I have these 12 steps, and I deliberately picked 12 steps because we are addicted to our current way of life. And I've been through a lot of habit literature. How do you change habits? And the way to do it is to pick one of these 12 steps. Just pick one. I know this is a room full of A-type driven people, so you may want to pick all 12 at once. I highly recommend not to do that. Because the idea, as you said, is to make it sustainable. It's not to just go and do another binge well-being thing and then regress 2 weeks later. So to make it sustainable, pick one of the 12 steps and start implementing it. And I made them all microscopic, like super easy. You don't have to really change much of anything. The one that I picked first was sleep. I went from getting 4 to 5 hours to getting 7 to 8 hours, but I did it in increments. I started sleeping 30 minutes more. And then it's like I began to feel so much better that it drew me to want to prioritize it. So for me, this is kind of sacred now. About 90% of my time, I don't say 100% of my time, but 90% of my time I get 7 to 8 hours sleep. And in order to do that, it means saying no to good things. I mean, like last night we finished an event I was doing and I would have liked to go to dinner with friends, but instead I went to my hotel. I had a long bath. Incidentally, transitions are very important. A lot of people have a hard time sleeping because they just crash. You know, they're on their emails until the last minute, until their eyes close, right? Come on, we've all done it. And then they crash. And so so they probably sleep for an hour or two, but then they wake up because there's been no transition. And I believe in, even if you do a little 10-minute, I'm sorry, I'm sounding like a sleep therapist, but I'm a sleep evangelist. I gave a speech to the Smith women graduating class telling them to sleep their way to the top. So just a very simple transition of having I have a hot bath every night with Epsom salts because it's like saying goodbye to the day with all its good and the bad moments. Every day has both. And it's like this is done. As the Bible says, let the dead bury the dead. And I always have like night clothes. You know, most of us sleep in our gym clothes. You know, and it's like your subconscious knows we are going to bed. We are wearing silk pajamas or a silk night dress or whatever you enjoy that is like fluffy and fun and sleep. And I did that. I didn't come up with that. I did a sleep challenge with Cindy Levy, the editor of Glamour in the U.S., and we wrote about it. This was like in 2011.
This is about your appointment, making
yes,
an appointment.
and that was her idea.
I love that idea.
Cindy
so I quite like appointments, so I can work with
exactly. That was what Cindy. Yeah, Cindy said. Cindy's a workaholic, and she said I never miss an appointment. She's obsessed with making appointments, so she makes appointments with sleep. She basically says I have to get up at 7 or 6, whatever, and then I calculate how many hours I need, and that's in my schedule. It's like she has her office, put it in her schedule. And so she's the one who sent me pink silk pajamas. She said, you can't keep sleeping in these T-shirts. And we're really each other's sleep buddy. And it's great to find a thrive buddy who can be your partner in what you are doing, who can support you, and you can support them.
Now, the highs and lows that you've had, I'm sure, mean that you approach life in a very different way. But one of the things you talk about in the book, which I really love, is believing and trusting that life is rigged in your favour. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So that's a great line by Rumi, you know, the great poet who said, live life as though everything is rigged in your favour. And I absolutely love that because so many of us live our lives focusing on what is not working, focusing on the things we want more of, focusing on what we're lacking. And I feel when we live life trusting that whatever is happening, including the heartbreaks and the difficult moments, have a hidden purpose and a hidden blessing, it just changes the quality of our lives. We approach it differently.
But you're very driven, Arianna, and I love also in the book you talk about being rejected 36 times by different publishers when you were first writing. Then obviously you've had huge success subsequently, and also with HuffPost. When you came to sell Huffington Post originally, or to partner with AOL, how did that feel for you? What were the emotions that you went through? Because I know that was very interested in that particular moment in your life.
Oh, I very much wanted us to keep growing.
Yeah.
And felt that AOL brought all the resources that we needed to keep growing, not sequentially, which is the way you normally grow in a startup. You know, as you raise more funding, you invest in one area and then in another area, but all at once. So all the three areas that I want us to grow in, we've done it, and it's been really an amazing relationship. You know, we grew in international. I want us to be a global company. We're now in 11 countries, and we're launching in India in the fall, and then in the Middle East, and then in Greece. And now, out of our 95 million unique visitors, 49%, almost 50% is coming from outside the United States.
Fantastic.
So that was a great, I knew we had to do that in order to become a continuously growing company. Video was another area, and the third is the area that we've been talking about. The Huffington Post started as a pure politics and news site. And now, in fact, we had our meeting on Monday with all our international editors in our London office. And we have become a thought leader internationally in this area that we're discussing here. And that's, I mean, I didn't start that because I thought it would have a big impact on us at the time, on us as in terms of traffic, monetization, but I really believed in it. And we launched a dedicated sleep section 7 years ago when people were rolling their eyes. And now, the German editor, we launched the site in Germany in October. The German editors were telling us that their healthy living traffic is 4 times their traffic for the politics section.
Wow. How does Tim feel about that?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, most companies care about traffic and monetization. We care about that, and we care about great content and editorial. So this is a real alignment. And Carla is our global editor of this third metric coverage. And in fact, this is a great moment to invite you all to participate, because this is the great moment in media, which is content is not just produced by our editors and our reporters. We have 850 of them around the world. It's also produced by everyone who has something interesting to say. And so I would love to invite you to join this conversation, because when people read other people's stories, either stories of burnout or stories of how you're doing it, how you're managing, what are your thriving recipes, it helps accelerate this global shift. So I'm going to give you my email address, and then we have cards too, and Carla has cards, which is very simple, Arianna@huffingtonpost.com. And we'd love to have you share your ideas and also participate in the campaign we launched, which is very simple, #HowIThrive.
Yeah.
You know, sharing like recipes with each other.
Do you think in time, Arianna, you'll end up doing this as a complete sort of part of your career, and that actually one day HuffPost will be part of your legacy, but actually Thrive and Third Metric will be everything that you do?
Wow. I mean, I love what I'm doing with Thrive. And I can continue doing it because it is also very much part of what we're doing editorially. And there's no question there is an evangelist in me. So I love talking about it. I love people telling me that they're making little changes in their lives, because I really believe that that's how we're going to get to a critical mass, which those of you who are scientists know it is when there is enough radioactive material that the change becomes sustainable, self-sustainable. We can do that with the thriving practices, and then it will spread everywhere.
Absolutely. Last question for me, and I'll take a couple from the floor if that's okay. So get some questions ready if you have any. With Huffington Post, with your name with that, clearly there is great pride. We all have our own ego with it to some degree, and I guess you're always going to be intrinsically linked to it. How does that feel for you, and would you ever do something like that again?
Oh, I haven't thought about that at all. I just love what I'm doing right now. I feel very blessed. and very grateful. And remembering all the things I'm grateful for every day is definitely part of the thriving practice.
Understood. Thank you. Anybody like to ask a question? Go on, Kate.
You've just given out your email address, and at One Young World in Johannesburg, you gave 1,300 young people your email
And
address.
we got some great blogs.
And I know personally that when we email you, you respond personally immediately. I'm very bad at responding on email. I would like to know how you do that, because you must get thousands. Seriously, how the hell do you do
I think
that?
it's you
Because
and
I
Martin
know-
Sorrell seem to
I
do
know
that very well.
Oh yes,
She
Martin.
knocks Martin into a cocked hat.
Well, first of all, I'm so happy you're here, because what you're doing with One Young World is so magnificent. Let's give you a big round
Yes.
of applause. And I don't know if you've seen her in action, but she was amazing. All you seem to have been on stage, like
You were
not.
amazing.
No, but you were there not.
No, she was.
You were there.
You were awesome. Absolutely.
Non-stop, and here is really honest, and I told you that in Johannesburg, but I want to say it publicly, that was amazing to me, was that normally when you're running a conference, you're really busy running the conference and you're hardly listening to anything. And you were there just listening to every young person who spoke. You gave them your full attention, and that meant so much to people. And it had such a quality of being really present. John, I don't know if John is here, John Nolan, who runs our communications and has been with me, has watched me in the car going from place to place, handling my emails, and we're talking about it. And the way I do it is I do very quick replies. I don't write nice emails. I don't top and tail them. I don't say, hope you're well. I don't say, see you later, or whatever. I just handle whatever has to be handled. And it took me a while to do that, because at first it seemed rude, because we're so used to doing the nice letters and the top and tailing, etc. And now it's just like, I just kind of handle the request. It's whatever it is. It's a yes, it's a no, it's a CCing my assistant. And then the important thing is to just respond. But also, I am not obsessive at all about clearing my email before I go to sleep. That was another thing I gave up, because I think that is really such a big addiction for us perfectionists who feel we have to get to zero, which lasts for about less than a second, right, before you're back. I have also ended all notifications. I don't have any incoming email. I don't want, so many of us get emails that are generic emails. I don't get the generic emails. I have a separate BlackBerry, actually, where I get all the editorial threads, because I want to see what's happening. But I go to that when I'm ready to look at who is assigning what, who is writing what. I mean, everybody has to work out their own way. I was having dinner on Sunday with Paul Polman, who runs Unilever, and he was walking me through his system of how he separates his emails to go into different buckets, and including the customer service bucket. I don't like that Ben & Jerry ice cream he gets that I got, which go obviously to somebody else, but then he has access to be able to see, so that he can actually notice. Nobody ever knows when he's going to be looking at what the customers are saying to see what may not be going right.
Colin.
If trust, as far as I'm concerned, is at the roots and the heart of your relationships, especially family. I haven't read Thrive. I've had a quick look through the index and the context, and trust is never mentioned. Why?
Oh, an index is not produced by the author. There's a lot of conversation about trust, but I think the index is probably done more around names, around the science, around the universities that produce the science, and less around concepts like trust or love, or that's probably the way the index maker did it. We can complain to Random House, but I promise you there's a lot about trust in the book.
Sorry, Emma, and then David.
Really keen to understand journey, what do you think your colleagues observed first in terms of those shifts you started to make in the workspace? How much of it was sort of your internal private journey that you started, and how much of it was literally from one day to the next? Hold on a minute, there's a different person, a different way of working here.
I don't think it was from one day to the next, but I really believe very much in what Maya Angelou said, which is that when you learn, teach. So I talked about it endlessly. We instituted nap rooms at the Huffington Post. We now have meditation, yoga, breathing classes. We have an email policy where everybody knows that when they are done with their work, they are not expected to be on email. If there is something urgent that happens, we can text them or call them. So, but it wasn't overnight by any means at all, because it was a journey for me too. I didn't have the full picture overnight.
David?
Our lives are probably full of too many angry and grumpy, often old men, I think, myself in that group. But they often stymie a lot of good things in business and politics and other parts of life. How do you deal with people, a lot of men like that, who sort of get in the way and, in a way, don't aspire to try and do the things that we're talking about today? How do you deal with grumpy old men?
So that's a very good question. I think your grumpy old man is probably shorthand for people who are set in their ways, they're not going to change, or they're going to be the last to change. And remember, even when we stop believing that the earth is flat, right, there are still people who believe the earth is flat. So there are always going to be people who believe burnout is the way to success, and they want to create that kind of environment. So I actually have a story in the book where I talk about that. It's a dream I had. Another thing that happens when you begin to get enough sleep is that you remember your dreams, and it's just fantastic. You know, it's like we all have amazing dreams, but most of the time we just basically don't remember them because we wake up too exhausted. So one of these dreams I had was my being on a train, going home. Now, if you're a believer, you can say going home to God. If you're not a believer, I was doing a panel with John Lloyd from QI at Hay over the weekend, and he calls it the great whatever. So you're going home to the great whatever. And in the compartment of your train is your family, the people you've chosen as your friends. You know, you haven't chosen your family. You may have grumpy old men among them or women. That's like part of life, right? There's nothing you can do about it. But then in the dream, what was very clear is that don't let anyone in your compartment, when you have a choice, you don't always have a choice, who is a toxic, grumpy old person. I call them the Iagos of life. You know, I think Othello is the most amazing play in portraying that toxic personality, who often is incredibly charming. They're not always grumpy. The grumpy old men are easier in a way. You can tell them. They're telegraphing who they are. Harder are the charming old men or young men or old women who are basically one thing in person and another thing behind your back. And these are the people you have to absolutely clearly escort out of your train. They can go to another compartment, but don't keep them in your compartment. And then the next thing that's equally important is don't hold a grudge against them. Because I quote Carrie Fisher in the book, who said, resentment is the poison you drink thinking the other person is going to die. So, you know, grudges, so get them off the train and then forget them.
Freud says your dreams are your unconscious wishes. That's what he would say.
But he was wrong.
Pushing people off trains.
He also thought it was all about sex. So.
I'm inclined to believe that, Arianna. Last question is from lovely Tom Tomasi.
Arianna, how much do you attribute your success to your Greek heritage?
You see, Greek? I contribute 100% of my success. And you too, right? Yes.
Aaron, I selfishly have the last question. I have 2 phones that sleep with me under my pillow, and I have sugar in the bottom of every handbag. I wear lots of heels, and I have a call list each night, which is like a supermarket shopping list. How long have my cheekbones got?
So, you're going to be a project of mine. And because I love hard cases, no, I think basically you can keep the high heels, no problem.
Fabulous.
Yeah, but you absolutely have to get your 2 smartphones out of your bed. I promise I'm going to find you a great guy.
Brilliant. I'll swap you the phones when you
Yes.
find me the man. How's that?
Carl and I already came up with an idea, right? A man with a half-first connection, so we'll keep you in the family.
It's been a complete joy. I know you're on a whirlwind tour of London, so we're very grateful you gave some time to the Lighthouse and Navbeat Europe. Arianna's got a few minutes to sign some books and to meet you all if you'd like, and there's some lovely canapes and things coming out to keep you sustained, certainly into the afternoon. It's been a joy, and we love reading your writing. I hope you all get a chance to read the book, especially you, Colin. There's definitely trust in that book, I promise you. But can we please give our appreciation to the fabulous Arianna?